Chapter 3. Assembling your team. How to win at auction by leveraging the power of others. First things first. It's possible to buy homes at auction all on your own. I know people who buy foreclosures and do everything themselves. They search out the notices and dig into the tax records. They drive by the homes and talk to the neighbors. They pull real estate data and crunch renovation numbers. They bid at auction. And when they buy something, they get right in there and start swinging hammers and painting walls. Those people have a specific set of resources and skills and a certain mindset that makes it work. They often have more surplus time than cash, are broadly skilled or confident in their ability to learn on the fly, tend to be the DIY type, and approach buying at auction as a one place at a time, all-in endeavor. In many ways, those people are the deacons of our previous chapter. At the other end of the spectrum are people more like Jasmine. They look at buying homes at auction as a business. They tend to spend money on people and services in order to increase their odds of success. They want to buy as many properties at auction as possible, provided that they can find good deals. Those people tend to have more surplus cash, or access to cash, an important idea we'll discuss later, and less time, like to leverage other people's efforts and surround themselves with people who already have the necessary skills and are better at using those skills. In the previous chapter, Jasmine was taking her first fledgling steps toward becoming the second type of auction buyer. She wasn't wealthy, but she was judiciously choosing where to allocate her resources to serve her best. When I started buying at auction, I was a lot like the first type of buyer. I would drive by all the houses myself. I'd take pictures of them and create files for each one. I'd do title research on all of them and go online to figure out what the pricing should be. Then I would put in my best guesses for rehab costs and go bid on the properties at auction. It worked, but I missed out on a lot of properties, and progress was slow in the beginning. If you have or think you can develop all the skills you need and you want to do it on your own, go for it. You could even head straight to part 2 and start reviewing the 5-step process. But before you do, it's worth considering the bigger picture. Most of us need a little help in life. We're not experts at everything. You might be great with spreadsheets, but terrible with hammers, or perhaps the opposite. You might love to go to auction, but not have the time to drive to every address to do the legwork beforehand. You might be short on time but have some money, or the reverse. Whatever the situation, you're almost certainly going to need help with at least some of the tasks on the road to buying and profiting on your first auction house. That help doesn't have to cost a lot, or anything, as you'll see, but it's best to go into the process with your eyes open. And remember, success is about fishing. It's about numbers. And the best way to multiply your numbers is to get help. Time, money, and teleportation. What tends to discourage people from getting help, however, is cost. Every dollar I spend paying for something, such people say, is a dollar I'm giving up. While that may seem true, it's worth digging into. The biggest challenge for most newcomers to the foreclosure business is indeed numbers, but not financial numbers. It's property numbers, or in other words, simply being able to identify, analyze, and bid on enough homes to be successful. Jasmine used a purchase list to increase the total pool of foreclosures to choose from. But she also hired someone to drive by the properties she knew she didn't have time to check out on her own. Likewise, if there are 2 auctions in your area on the same day at the same time, and you pay a bidder to attend on your behalf, you aren't just trading money for time, you're trading a little money for effectively doubling your odds of success by being at twice as many auctions. It's as if you developed teleportation powers so you can be in two places at once. Auctions are all about fishing, and the more lines in the water, the better. If buying a second rod and reel and paying someone to cast it doubles your chances, that's at least worth considering. In this chapter, we'll look at the people and skills that are most likely to increase your odds, reduce your mistakes, and lead you to a successful first bid on the courthouse steps. Lesson: building a team is an enormous multiplier for your numbers. You're only one person. If you're serious about buying on the courthouse steps, you need to be serious about asking for help. Your auction A-team. Have you ever watched a heist movie? They often start with a montage of scenes that show the team being put together. Each member has a special skill set. Without the full team, the scheme falls apart and no one profits. Think of this as similar. You need a diverse array of skilled people who can help you be successful. But instead of safecrackers, explosive experts, and alarm techs, you may want the following. Property scouts drivers. Like Jasmine, one of the first people I hired was a property driver. The drive-by, which we'll talk about in step 2, is incredibly valuable. It seems simple, and it is, but I can't imagine buying homes at auction without doing drive-bys. The challenge is that they can be very time-consuming. In the beginning, I only wanted to buy homes that were unoccupied. We didn't yet know how to evict tenants, and it seemed like another layer of risk and complication. I wanted to focus on homes that were empty, period. The trick was that although I might have a list of 100 homes slated for auction, I had no idea which ones were unoccupied. The only way to make an educated guess was to visit each home in person. But visiting 100 homes? That was days of work. Days that cut into analyzing and valuing the properties and preparing for and attending auctions. I knew that of those 100 homes, less than a quarter might be vacant or meet my other criteria, things like age or price, which we'll get to. I reasoned that if someone else could identify those 25 or so places, I could drive by them myself and really dig in. I would still be driving, but it would be high-value driving. Since those early days, the role of property scout has developed into a real job. People pay for it. People do it. It's not usually a full-time job, however, and you can generally pay people on a per-drive or per-address basis. The criteria for choosing a driver? Look for someone who can drive and has a reasonably decent-looking vehicle, is willing to work part-time on a per-drive or per-address basis, has a smartphone to upload photos and text, and isn't afraid to knock on doors and talk to people. This is crucial, as you'll see later. Real estate professionals. Before auction day, there's one single number you need to arrive at for each house you're interested in, and that's your maximum bid, the most you're willing to pay for the property at auction. Ideally, it captures all the information you've gathered, as well as the unknowns, and turns them into a number you think makes sense. Coming up with that number, which we'll explore later, is an area you might consider getting help with. For most people, a realtor or other real estate professional is the logical choice. They generally have extensive experience in your market, and they have access to lots of data. Unless you have some experience and use a service like Padhawk, a realtor will simply know more than you. Generally, this can go one of two ways. Either you pay a fee for the realtor to give you an opinion of the value of each listing, or the realtor helps you out in the hopes of representing you as the listing agent in the future when you sell the homes you buy at auction. I got started by reaching out to 4 or 5 agents. One responded, helped me with valuations for free, and then went on to make a healthy return on that investment by becoming the listing agent for many properties we sold. Title researchers. You can do your own title research. We'll cover that in step 4. But you can also have it done for you. There are 2 ways to approach outsourcing this job. The first is to simply pay a professional. There are companies that specialize in title review work. The upside is that you'll be hiring someone who knows their way around and understands the nuances of title work. You can also hire someone who's inexperienced and teach them the job. But before you can teach anyone else, you'll need to log some experience doing it yourself first. Don't pick the muddy middle ground of paying someone who's inexperienced if you don't have experience either. Title is worth taking seriously. Auction bidders. The actual auction might seem like the least likely part of the process to outsource, but there are reasons why you might want to have someone else represent you at auction to do the bidding. The most compelling is that in some areas, multiple auctions happen on the same day in different locations, and they all may have properties you're interested in. You can't be in 2 places at once. The same is true of the auction itself. There are often multiple trustees selling at the same place on the same day. Trying to bid on more than one place at the same time is very challenging. It can also be overwhelming at first. Some people choose to have a professional bidder represent them initially while they adjust to the chaos of several hundred properties being sold by multiple trustees in a short time. Auctions are not always comfortable affairs either. They tend to be held outside, and the weather doesn't usually change that. Homes are sold, rain or shine, in the heat or cold, and standing around for a few hours on a lousy day requires a certain temperament. In short, you may get your best results at auction if you have someone else you can lean on. The person you choose to represent you at auction will not only need to be available on specific auction dates, no flexibility there, but they'll have to be reliable. After all, they'll be walking around with your cashier's checks in their pocket. As a rule, you'll pay more for an auction bidder than you would for a property scout. But if hiring one makes the difference between closing a great deal or missing out, you'll find it's money well spent. Attorneys. I didn't use an attorney for the first 15 or 20 houses I bought at auction. Normally, when you buy a home, lawyers are involved to make sure the money changes hands properly, register title changes and mortgages, and take care of the legal minutia. When you buy a property at auction, those tasks are generally performed by you and the trustee running the auction. When you start buying houses that are occupied, however, you'll likely want a lawyer who specializes in evictions. Regardless, use an attorney or a firm that specializes in real estate law. That way, if you run into complications or need legal help with any other part of the process, you'll have an expert to turn to. Locksmiths. One of your first jobs after you purchase is to change the locks. This is always good policy and not something you want to try to save a few dollars on or leave until later. Locksmiths are easy to find. Use one. Tradespeople and contractors. It's wise to assume that any home you buy at auction is going to need some work. The property might need anything from a quick cleaning to a considerable renovation, but it's going to need something. Painters and cleaners are the most likely pros you'll need. Even a well-cared-for home will have to be painted after the owners move out. At some point, you're going to need plumbers, carpenters, and electricians as well. Bankers, lenders, and financial partners. When it comes to the courthouse steps, Cash is generally king. In most cases, you'll need to pay immediately or within a very narrow time frame for what you buy. It's difficult to get traditional mortgages for auction properties because appraisers and inspectors can't get inside the homes to see them. We'll discuss this in detail in a later chapter. For now, just remember this. If you can find great deals, great money will follow. While you might not have the money to bid on certain properties, someone else does. A financial partner might be just what you need. Tips for building a great team. For many people, getting help is a barrier. Here are a few extra lessons we've learned along the way that might smooth the road ahead. You're not hiring full-time. It's important to remember that you're almost certainly not hiring anyone full-time, at least not at first. You probably don't need the burden of a payroll right off the bat. Instead, you want to look at the work that has to be done and decide on the best way to make it happen. That choice is different for everyone. Think of your team first and foremost as a trusted network that you build over time and can turn to for the things you need. It takes time to find greatness. One of the most common mistakes people make is to give up looking for good help after one bad experience. It takes time to find great people, but it's worth the investment. There's nothing more reassuring or satisfying than being able to send one message to someone and know that the job you need to get done will be done, and done well. For example, if you don't find the right driver right away, try again. Don't be discouraged if the first one doesn't work out. It doesn't cost much to see how someone performs by giving them a single task. And don't settle for anyone who isn't great, at least not for long. One person can fill many roles. The search for the right person can pay off in other ways too. I've had realtors analyze properties, then represent me at auction, and then list the house for sale after we purchase it. As you'll see in the next section, any part of the auction process can be learned, and it can also be taught. If you find the right person, keep using them and consider using them for a wider range of tasks. Work by referral. When you find a great person, keep them. Better yet, ask them for more great people. This can work particularly well with contractors. Get referrals from someone who is terrific at what they do and tell them that you were referred by so-and-so. Quality is contagious, and great tradespeople like to work with other great tradespeople. Fishing and the love of the process. Have you ever noticed just how much fishermen love to fish? They'll get up in the dark, head out in the cold and the rain, freeze for hours, catch nothing, and then get up and do it again the next day. At times, it seems they don't even care whether they catch anything. Fishermen love their sport because they truly love fishing more than catching. They're process-driven. All that boating around, testing baits, and analyzing currents, temperature, and profiles of the fish neighborhood is part of the great joy of the game. Fishermen like it more when they catch, but they keep fishing even if they don't, because they love the act of fishing itself. Buying at auction is similar. You need to fall in love with the process. You need to enjoy digging up information on properties, filtering lists to find the right properties for you, investigating those you think are promising, and crunching the numbers. Like fishermen, successful auction buyers are process-driven. We break our process into 5 distinct steps. We don't skimp and we don't skip. Every step has a purpose, and they all depend on each other. Following the process is the most important thing you can do. Here's why. It focuses on finding properties that suit you, your risk tolerance, your budget, your skills. It reduces risk. The process is designed to reduce or eliminate the biggest risks of auction, those we discussed in Chapter 1. It protects you from yourself. It's easy to get swept up in the excitement of a specific home, or the potential for huge profits, or the exhilaration of an auction. The process helps you stay grounded and rational. When it comes to buying foreclosures at auction, being grounded and rational is essential. It delivers the best returns. Financial gain isn't the only reason to follow the process, but it's a big one. The process helps you narrow down your search to properties that make financial sense. Otherwise, buying foreclosed properties at auction is not worth your time and effort. As they say, plan the work and work the plan. That's how you find great properties, how you buy them at the best price, and how you turn that price into profits. Wait, there are resources? Hey, we're about to launch into Part 2, which details the 5 steps of our process. It's the nitty-gritty of how to find, analyze, and bid on foreclosures at auction. We've put together a great resource page to go with this section. It has checklists, spreadsheets, calculators, links, maps, and all kinds of other goodies, all of which will make your life a lot easier. Note: you can find everything at biggerpockets.com/foreclosure bonus.